First, you would have seen the story that Paul broke at the top of the last hour, which is that Cory Bernardi, former Liberal Senator for South Australia, will now be joining One Nation in South Australia. He will be running as their lead upper house candidate at the state election next month. And this comes as the latest round of polling shows that indeed One Nation is doing exceptionally well. It's just yet another example of polling showing this. This is the Redbridge and Accent Research poll that was in the AFR today, showing that nationally One Nation's primary vote is up to 26%, which is up 9% on their last result. Labor's down 1% to 34, the Libs are 17, and you add in 2 if there was a coalition, and that would be 19. So One Nation is far and away the most popular party on the right in this country in every available poll now. And going back to South Australia, there was a story in the Advertiser today, One Nation and Pauline Hanson saying that they are going to run a candidate in every single seat at the state election. Now, South Australia has a lower house of 47 seats and an upper house of 22 seats. So this will really be the first real test of this polling that we've seen, showing how popular One Nation apparently is. Of course, we have a preferential voting system in this country, and South Australia has a full preferential voting system. They don't have optional preferential voting as some states do, so you have to number every single box. So it does make the job of getting seats in the lower house a lot harder, bit easier in the upper house. But it will be interesting to see now they've got Cory Bernardi on board, a well-known guy in South Australia, good fella, I have to say, and a mate of mine. But this will be the first real test of whether or not One Nation can pull it off.
Yeah, I think the first test, you're right, will be how does the polling translate into votes at the election. But the second test is how many of the elected One Nation members actually stay in One Nation after the election. One Nation did get an upper house member at the last South Australian election, Sarah Game, but she left the party and became an independent. All 3 One Nation members of the upper house in New South Wales have left the party and become independents. If you look back at One Nation's whole history since 1998, over 90% of all One Nation members ever elected to Parliament have left the party and defected to other parties or become independents. So I think that will be the real test. Is this, and this is the test, if you want to go from just being a protest vote, send a message to the Liberals, be more conservative, versus actually be a political force in your own right. I think clearly there's something institutionally that they'll have to deal with if they're going to buck the trend of the last 25 years, which is that, yeah, they can get people elected, but once they're elected, they don't tend to stick around.